Today is the last day of my life that I'll be renting, hopefully. Indeed, tomorrow I'll be moving into a house that I have bought, the house that Bitcoin built. And then it's life on easy mode. No more flushing £1,000 down the drain on rent each month. No longer will I be subject to those twice-a-year surprise inspections. No longer will I be a second-class citizen who until recently wasn't permitted a pet or the ability to paint a wall. And no more battling with landlords over that deposit money which they seem to think is theirs by default. When renting, I don't belong. Everything I do I know is temporary. That next dreaded removal van day is only a matter of time away. So it will be nice to finally move into a room and to know that I might actually be there until I don't want to be anymore. When it comes to buying houses, other people may be more worried about woodworm or how much sunlight their garden gets or whether it's built of Mundic block. And rightly so. Turns out everywhere we look in our house, there's asbestos. But my main housing concerns are a little different from most people's. I worry about stuff like it being too close to water because it will be the first to be claimed when the sea levels rise. And I've avoided anywhere too close to the dockyard just in case of nuclear war. But it turns out that all that paranoia has actually paid off because we finally found the perfect house. And by perfect I mean it's hidden behind a sizable hill come nuclear war. And the layout inside is ridiculous. It's like a really poorly thought out sim house where there are lots of extra narrow corridors leading everywhere. I never thought I'd find my ideal house, but here it is. It would be very nice to stop spending the best part of £1,000 a month on rent, which I know is just money down the drain. I've been renting for more years than I'd have liked, but until recently I could justify it, because before the house prices went really silly, it was nice to have the freedom to move and not to be tied down to a place. I have lived in several houses now, all with their pros and cons, and I've learned more about what I want and don't want from my own house. And neighbours. So had I bought sooner, I might have made a mistake. I might still be making a mistake, but it'll be a different mistake now. I do want to rant about houses for a bit. House prices are at an all-time high, and every time there's a policy change or update to the situation, it always seems to work against first-time buyers and in the favour of people who already own several. During COVID, the government removed stamp duty, which was apparently to help first-time buyers. But here's the thing, first-time buyers don't pay stamp duty, so it just put everyone in direct competition against landlords who were trying to buy their fifth house. I have been waiting for years for the market to crash. And since buying, it does look like it's about to happen. But then it's been doing that for years, and yet prices continue to shoot up, and faster than the rate at which I can earn money. It is honestly shocking, the state of the housing market. The house I've just bought cost £60,000 more than when it sold 18 months ago. That makes me feel sick. That's literally over £3,000 a month for the best part of this pandemic that I've wasted, all because I was too poor to have a house already. Not that I had any choice in the matter, because despite being a financially successful YouTuber, and despite having a girlfriend who's also in a good financial position, it was only thanks to a bunch of Bitcoin I bought 10 years ago, and eventually sold last year, that I had just enough to afford a semi-detached house. So yeah, while our parents probably didn't make any money from Bitcoin, they're already sat on an asset that's worth more than they would have made from it anyway. So how does it feel to have made money from Bitcoin? The answer is, it feels very different from making money in other ways. As the price of Bitcoin is going up, it feels great. The selling of it though, not so much. Transferring it from a private wallet to an exchange takes time, during which time you're left second guessing whether or not it's going to the right place. And then you get that again once you sell the Bitcoin and transfer the money to your bank. That can take days. That's also not very nice. And there's something a bit empty once it's all done. It's almost like finishing a TV series that you've been enjoying, and now there's a void in your life that takes a while to go away. The world feels kind of muted. You've gone from having this appreciating asset in the background to nothing. You're off the ride for good or bad, and it's quiet. And there is something empty from having made money from something I just bought and left for years, versus the daily slog of work that I do with the intention of making money. My YouTubing career has certainly been more rewarding and fulfilling. I have far more memories from that, and I would rather be remembered as the person who did YouTubing than to be that guy who got lucky with Bitcoin. Because making money with Bitcoin is the process of clicking sell on something that, with hindsight, I realised just how unlikely it was that it ever happened. Even now it's all done and behind me, there's still that nagging feeling that I didn't deserve it. And that in other similar timelines, through no fault of my own, it didn't happen. And that it could still somehow creep into this timeline and alter this one as well. It's hard to explain and difficult to talk about when it's so clear that other people are filled with a regret about not having done the same with Bitcoin. Or worse still, doing something similar but selling at a worse time. Also, it was always the people without Bitcoin who were confidently telling me what I should or shouldn't have done with mine. It's very easy to hear a story about somebody who bought 100 Bitcoin for £1 each and to assume it's obvious that they should have sold them all for £50,000 each. And believe me, they're painfully aware of that too. But the reality of it is so different. They likely sold half their Bitcoin when it got to £2 each. then another half of what remained at £10. If they're lucky, they might still have a few Bitcoin left which they held onto in the remote chance it ever reached £1,000 or £10,000 in value, but the chances of them holding onto all of it is remote. Because what happens is, you double your money and you think you've done a great job. You triple it and suddenly you're tempted to sell a third of it just to cover your costs in case it ever crashes to zero. And that's probably a sensible thing to do. So to somehow hold on to all of it until it's appreciated in value hundreds or thousands of times over is hard, and probably not the sensible thing to do. And it takes years. In that time you have so many moments where you wonder if now is the highest it will ever get. Of course, when blessed with hindsight, you have a nice, easy graph where it's obvious where you should have bought and where you should have sold at the time. And if it wasn't for Elon's tweets, I'd say I did a pretty good job with the timing. I just got the quantities wrong every time. So yes, newspapers love to publish how much that person who lost their hard drive with bitcoins on has lost out on, if they sold them all at the current rate. But the reality is, if they still had that hard drive, then they'd likely have sold all the bitcoin years ago for a tiny fraction of what it's worth now anyway. It's really not as easy, nor as stress-free as you'd think it is. And I hold on to the fact that while I didn't make all of the money I could have made from it, I still made good money from it. And now I have a house, no mortgage, and no money. That's a strange feeling. All my life I've hoarded and I've hoarded and I've hoarded, and I've tried to save as much as I can with the intention of eventually buying a house. It's not like something I consciously did, I just did it. But that moment it was all for has come and gone and left my accounts. It's weird to have built that money up in such bitty, grainy amounts, only to see it all suddenly go again in clean £25,000 daily chunks. And there is something satisfying about being cash poor yet asset rich. A certain stability that my life has lacked up to this moment. But what happens now? I don't need to hoard money in the same way anymore, but I probably will, because why change for the sake of it? It's a good habit, and I know I only appreciate those once they're gone. So I'm going to try and hold on to this one. But I realise I've never thought this far ahead. Part of me never thought this day would ever come. Part of me still doesn't. But now I've got the rest of my life ahead of me and I realise I haven't planned for any of it. I describe it as a calm. A sort of like, what now? This must be what eventually finishing Destruction Darius 2 will feel like. As a law-abiding, honest person, I was stupidly open about my Bitcoin every step of the way. I declared it on my self-assessment and was taxed heavily for doing so. And then, in the name of prudency, I declared my total Bitcoin value when buying the house, which again ensured that I was shafted to the full extent of the law. The solicitors refused to touch the Bitcoin money. The word Bitcoin sets off alarms and they don't know what to do with it because they've never had to deal with it before and they think that Bitcoin equals money laundering. They asked I found all that money somewhere else instead, which I'm pretty sure is a trap, because who has enough money for a house hidden away somewhere? And how dodgy would that money have to be if you'd rather declare your Bitcoin money first? There was a point in the process where I was desperate. I had done everything right, I had been completely honest about everything, yet I was being treated like a criminal and wasn't allowed to use my own money. We had been through the house buying so many times, and every time had been trumped by other offers pushing an already silly price up into even sillier prices, or from the sellers suddenly pulling out of the market for unknown reasons. And now, even as cash buyers, not in a chain, which would normally be the ideal situation, we had still somehow run into a barrier that risked jeopardising an already time-pressured and fragile house purchase. All because I was associated with blasted Bitcoin. I joked that the only way to make my legit earnings legit in the eyes of the law was to launder it. Anyway, turns out that everybody was just overreacting. It was the first time the solicitors or anybody involved in the house purchase had encountered this situation, and I was told to consult a forensic accountant to prove my innocence, which was of course all paid for by my Bitcoin gains. They asked for the Bitcoin trails and I pulled a hellish all-nighter trying to collect them all as best as I could. It's something I've been dreading since I bought the Bitcoin, and it is a real mess, and more so every year. It's not like a bank transaction where money goes out of one thing and into another. It splits up, it disappears, it joins a pooled account here, leaves it there. It's a car crash. I only managed it by working through it from both ends and from a bit in the middle as well. Half the exchanges I have used over the years have since been hacked or made obsolete. Even the wallet I stored the Bitcoin in became redundant a few years ago. They asked which exchange I initially bought it all from, and I was like, I didn't. I bought them from individuals. And it's crazy to see the transactions when I was buying Bitcoin for £300 each, or getting annoyed when they went up by £10 and sellers pulled out from a deal last minute. Looking back, it all seems so petty. At one point I had Litecoin on an exchange that was hacked, and they said that if I wanted it back, they demanded I gave them enough proof of my identity to enable them to commit identity fraud. So that was lost forever. It's honestly a miracle as much of my Bitcoin has survived as it did. So I gave the forensic accountant all this stuff in a comprehensive Excel sheet, and they put it into a pretty looking PDF, and that somehow proved my innocence. And that's me getting lucky. I honestly despair for anybody trying to get on the housing market who hasn't literally won the lottery, because when it comes to owning a house, they are screwed. A lot of people I know have recently bought, but with huge mortgages. My parents talk about how inflation used to be 10 times higher, but then houses used to cost 10 times less. I know it looks like inflation's going up for us as well. It is not going to end well for anybody with a large mortgage. And it sounds like, in order to combat this, the government is considering adopting the Japanese model of allowing people to pass their debt down to their children. So it doesn't look like they're going to try and make the housing market more affordable anytime soon. I graduated in a recession, and the country has gone from recession to recession since, then to a pandemic, then to a housing crisis. So if mortgages start to go up, that really will be the final nail in the coffin for many people my age. Unless, like I said, they literally won the lottery. But claiming that Bitcoin built the house is a bit of a disservice to everything else I've earned. I have always been very careful with my money. I've even stopped buying beans because the prices shot up about 50% in the last month. I don't even own a bed, and it's heartbreaking when the estate agent tries to get you into a blind price war where they may or may not be bluffing about the other offers, and where they're asking for another £5, £10 or £15,000, like it's nothing. That isn't nothing. I'm painfully aware that money alone is enough to wipe out all those years of savings where I've deliberately been cold with no heating, or where I've always rummaged the bargain bins for soon-to-be out-of-date food. But after all that, I am on the property market now. No more rent eating away at savings. We've got electricity and gas to do that now. Oh yes, all costs are going up. Fuel goes up, but not down. I got told by Virgin that due to inflation, they have to increase their rates by inflation again. But surely that's just going to cause inflation to increase even further. And sure, the cost of electricity has gone up, but why has the standing charge also risen? I was speaking about this with somebody very respectable, very well spoken, and they simply said, because they're all money-grubbing bastards. This rant has been cathartic, and there's another reason I've left it until now to rant about it, and that's because while I'm renting, I'm expected to complain about these things, as though somehow once I've got my own house, everything suddenly changes and I'm instead supposed to smugly sit by and to take pleasure in how everybody else is struggling just a little bit more than I am. It's like how if you mention gas or electricity prices, some people seem oblivious to the implications of it, instead proudly bragging about how they've locked their prices at a lower rate for a while. Like they did something clever, even though it's only delaying the same situation for them as everybody else is faced with right now. So no, let me just say, even now I'm no longer paying rent, I can still see the ridiculousness of having most people pay so much in rent that it makes it impossible for them to ever get their own house. To see landlords grumble about the cost of a new boiler, when tenants are practically paying the price of a new boiler every month on top of everything else already. That just isn't right. Simply by moving from paying off the cost of a landlord's house to having my own house, that's appreciating in value itself every month, everything else about my life has suddenly become a lot better as well. I'm free to do as I please with this property and to get whatever pet I want without having to ask for permission. And I'm free to drill LAN cable holes into whatever I want. I don't have inspections breathing down my neck, or the uncertainty of who's going to move in upstairs, or whether or not the landlord's going to sell this house at any moment for a quick buck. And in addition to all these benefits, I'm also suddenly saving so much money in rent every month that I have enough extra money for 12 holidays a year. That just isn't right, and it isn't fair. So yeah, I can't say my Bitcoin fortune was quite enough to buy a semi-detached house in England with, but it helped make it possible, and in a place I wanted to live, that's close to friends and family, without me having to move to the Highlands of Scotland to make my dream of home ownership attainable. And while there is a nice ring to claiming that it's the house that Bitcoin built, it isn't strictly true, and I hope this house has better foundations than cryptocurrencies.